Okay, so we come back to look at the Zodiacs, right? Version. We seen the simple version with JavaFX, right? And we pretty much see that they rely on 3 classes. Main is pretty much where you link to the view fxml. You set it to the parent root, and this is the title. You can just say Zodiacs, right? And the width and height of the windows, you can always adjusting it accordingly and make it to show. That's pretty much the main code, right? Again, root is the content of the view sample fxml here. That's how they link it. And then you show them the windows. This is primary stage. It's just the whole windows. Like when I run, we see the primary stage, which is the windows itself. We call primary stage with the title right as Zodiacs, right? And then I adjust the size. You see that? To set the scene. Scene is the gray area or the blue area like there, right? With the root, which is root contents of the view right there, right? And the size of the width and height of the gray area to make your primary stage like adjust according to the size. And then we make it show. So that's the main. And we already see how to use the scene builder to create the contents, which we put into the root right there, right? If we want to make it more interesting, to like just tell the user something like enter your date of birth, then we could just drag and drop the label and put in the top, and then change the label like text to be enter your date of birth. Okay, something like that, and make it bigger. Style, bold, italics, and change the color. All right, so you could, arrange it center. And when you rerun, it should get a new version with the label like that. So that's the fxml. And when we hit the date, if you remember, let's review where I put a date. This is actually take it from the date picker, and that picker you need the properties. Under code properties, you just need to give the fx id, which I name it DOB, right? And the get my zodiac, I get them on action, the method name get zodiacs, right? So whenever I do that, it's linked to the controller, which controller should have the same name, DOB, but give fxml, link to that fxml, then it know, right? Because you could make another type in here too, then it will never link to fxml, then you have to tell it to link right here. Then they know link to that picker type DOB. You don't have to create new object because it's already created from XML. And the method just call when you hit the button get zodiacs. And it's pretty much just do the work by get the values, right? And then print out the date and get the year, do the switch case and print out it, right? Now you could just, instead of show at the bottom, we're going to fading out from using console and start to use GUI now, right? Then you should maybe pop up dialog box to the user instead of system.out, right? In JavaFX, they use the alert. Alert is just an alert box or pop-up box, right? So JavaFX like alert dialog. See, so they're gonna have a lot of sample code. I found that code.makery is they have a very good solid tutorial for JavaFX. Yeah, whenever you see that, then you can just refer to it. So alert equals new, like this is information, it's just pop up like that. All right, so it's just create an object of the dialog box and set the title to the dialog box, and you can set the header text. Set the header text. This is the header text. If you don't set it, then they don't have header text, right? And set the content to show, and make it to show and wait. So let's do that here. Now, instead of keep printing that, you should store it, meaning that I should declare string like the type or zodiac type, right? And make it to null. And then we don't want to print it anymore. We want to store it into a variable named zodiac, right? Then we can just display it in the dialog by concatenating that variables into the dialog. So I'm just changing it a little bit. So now to make it faster, you can just do, they have the key to do that. Refactor, rename Alt-Shift-R. So I'm going to change it to, I don't see it, so, or another way is pretty much just find replace. Control F, right? I'm going to replace with let's see, would that work? Okay. 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 In parentheses, it's actually, you can leave it there, still work, but it's just in Java syntax you don't really need it. Which, if you want to find replace again, you could, but just find the one with a quotation, like double quotation, and replace with without parentheses. So now we're able to store the zodiacs into the variables named zodiacs. So the next step is, how would you do the dialog, right? And where would you do that? So technically, the controller pick up, and then we can do alert after that at the end. So let's make sure we collapse this. We're gonna put the code to the alert right here, right at the end of the switch case. So we're gonna do alert, and then alert equals to new alert, and alert dot alert type dot information. We can set the title, set title to zodiacs. Okay, your zodiacs. and then we can set the message. Set content text to be pretty much as this. So that's and then we have to make it to show and wait. Pretty much as it's not going to go away until the user hit OK button. So let's run it and see what we got. Let me close the old one. So we gonna pick the date, rooster, right? So that's the text header that we can set to instead of make it like set header text. Otherwise it's gonna be a message, right? Alert dot set header text. Set your subject. Yes. Again, this font type you can always change the size and style and everything else. Okay. Now we're pretty much done with the JavaFX application. So let's look at the how we make an app to run on Android app. So we're going to create a new, like first install, download the. I mean, you could use this too, actually. Let's try that. Android Studio, you can go with Android Studio, or you can use the IntelliJ idea. You see, you can create the Android project from there. Okay, but now the key is you need to get a SDK, just like we get a JDK, right? For Java, you need to get a SDK for Android Studio. So let's say my so that's app, Android app. Okay, we gotta do nvcc.edu CSC. So it said Android SDK is missing. See, you need to download Android SDK through the configure, project defaults, project structure, SDK, right? So first, how to download Android SDK. So you pretty much just Google like download Android SDK, just like when we download JDK, right? Java development kits. So like I said, when you come to this site, you can download the whole Android Studio. That's why I have the Android Studio. It's technically the same. It looks, it's from IntelliJ interface. It's the same thing, you can see, right? So that's why you could use that, or if you want to just download just the SDK itself and link to SDK, you could. Okay, so this is the whole Android Studio. You can put on Mac, Unix, Linux, Windows. And this is just the SDK itself, right? Just the command line tools. Right. If you don't need the Android Studio, you can download the basic Android command line tools. And you can use the SDK manager to download other SDK packages. This is just the SDK manager. Pretty much SDK manager is very important when you need to link more than just one tools. It's just manage all the tools that you need. Like you can have several versions of Android SDK, these are the packages like you can check to download and install. So this is a SDK manager, the tools that you need. Like you may need the emulator, right? So when you run, you need to run on the emulator if you don't have the Android phone. Alright, so now we're gonna let that run. We switch back, like I said, we could just run from that IntelliJ and put the SDK on after you download it, right? And also you could just use Android Studio, right? So it's pretty much the same new project, and this is going to be Android project instead of list of projects. Same interface, exact, right? So we just need to find a location where you want to put your project. Right, so let me just put on my desktop and name Subject Android app, and we can just put it Subject as an application name. So now this is where you go pick that are you writing this code to run on phone and tablet, and what version, right, of Android. So, and this is are you putting on a wearable or TV or glass. And this is just a template, right? Empty activities. Activity name, main activity. Let's leave it as default. And let's try to understand this. Like, if you understand JavaFX, we have what? FXML, right? Controller and main, right? So this is going to structure very similar to that. Okay, very similar to that, but more. Okay. So what we're gonna do, we're going to start to look at, let me cancel this out. We're gonna start to look at some logic here, right? Under controller here. So we can reuse this logic if we write it properly, meaning that like this one is not good because you have alert. This is not supporting an Android. This is going to be just JavaFX. So that's why when you write this, you actually should call the view and let the view handle that. Like now I integrate view into controller. Right, so it's not really a nice coding because it's hard to reuse this code when you want to import into Android Studio. Like I have to technically just copy this whole thing instead, right, and paste it into Android Studio again, which is not a good way to reuse the code. So let's look at, this is the main activity, right, after we create a project. So we learned unit test too. You start to see that Android create that for you. Android test and unit test. See that? And it's already filled the code for unit test for you. It's exactly the same that we have seen, right? So and it's put into the test like another package called test. And Android itself has Android test. Right. And this is to assert equals. Just try to test the package name. Right. So we run that. We start to test. So it asks me to which device you want to test, like the Nexus 5, Android, like you just pick the device, right? This one you must install it first, or if you have your phone, you can plug your USB in and install the drivers for your phone, and then it's going to pick up from that list. It's going to show up. Then you can pick your phone. It's going to load into your phone when you write the program. Like now, I pick the emulator, and if the machine is kind of like my machine is kind of slow, it's going to take a while. Okay, to load emulator. So that's a emulator because I picked the device as emulator. So next time you may bring your phone and bring your USB, and then we can try that. Okay, if you have Android phone. I probably need to buy a new phone. My Android is I use that to test too, but it's kind of very slow. It's just free phone, $25 phone. You can use that too, just to test. But you feel like it's not friendly touch. Not like an expensive phone. Yeah, just try to find a phone and USB right cord that you can see. Otherwise it's gonna be slow. Because normally it's just gonna be load right away, like less than a minute. That's why, like I said, this is gonna be slow, like that. This is gonna be faster. So next time I'll try to pick that. I can test on my phone too, actually. That's in settings, but I didn't do this for a while too. Alright, so I'm not sure you have the right USB. Now, since we're waiting for this to load, right? What I'm going to look at is another package. This is the package where you have your source code, main activity, right? This is like your main. Like in JavaFX, we have main, if you remember, right? This is just like that one. This is called main activity, right? You can see the code right there. So let's compare this to JavaFX a little bit. This is main in JavaFX, right? So we extend application. Application is just the GUI, the windows, right? That make JavaFX application. So this is extend app compact activity, right? And then they have start. You start the application. So app compact activity, so we have on create, right? So let's look at voice app compact activity a little bit. Okay. Let's watch this.
Hey, what's up guys, welcome back. This is Dinesh here, and in this video I'll be explaining you what is App Compact Activity. So, App Compact Activity is a class in Android which consists of some of the main functions and methods. App Compact Activity class is also a part of the Android support library. Now, before explaining you what is App Compact Activity, let me first explain you the concept of inheritance with a very simple example. Now, as you can see in the picture, there are two classes, one by the name of car and another class by the name of engine. The car class is basically an empty class as it does not consist of any
speaker, okay? That you can hear better. Audio. Second. Yesterday I set on the other machine. There's a button. Let's see why this one. I mean, can you guys hear okay?
I mean, we can up front. I'm not sure if we can in the back.
Right. Yesterday there's a button on this one. In another classroom I can set very easy. Okay, let me.
Any methods, functions, variables, or data types. On the other hand, the engine class consists of two methods, particularly steering wheel and acceleration. Now, the methods steering wheel and acceleration are defined inside the engine class. Now, as you can see in the video, if I now place the engine class inside the car class, then the car class will basically be able to inherit the functions and the methods that are inside the engine class. In simple terms, the car class is now able to use the methods defined inside the engine class. So, the car class, which was previously empty, now consists of two methods, steering wheel and acceleration, which belong to the engine class. And this concept, where one class can use the methods of another class, is called as inheritance. Now, if I write the above code in this manner, public class car extends engine, and inside the car class I have two methods, that is acceleration and steering wheel, and compare this with the original source code, then the main activity class is like your car class, which is empty, and the app compact activity is like the engine class, which basically consists of two methods. So in this case, the app compact activity is called as a superclass, as it has some of the main methods defined inside it, and the main activity is called as a subclass because it is inheriting or calling the functions that are inside the app compact activity. Further, if you go on Google and type in app compact activity Android, then you can basically find out the list of methods which are defined inside the app compact activity. Two of the basic methods which we have seen till now are the onCreate method and the findViewById method. So the onCreate and the findViewById methods are basically inherited from the app compact activity class and are not defined inside the main activity class. Similarly, if you hover over the app compact activity and click on the key combination Ctrl plus the left mouse button, then you'll be basically taken to the app compact activity source code. Now, you really do not need to understand the entire code which is written inside the app compact activity class, but what you should know is that when you extend main activity with app compact activity, you could now use the methods that are defined inside the app compact activity class. So if we compare this with a real life example, the skeleton of the car is nothing without the engine and the steering wheel. Okay, because on the left side, as you can see, I just have a skeleton of a car, and on the right side I have an engine which is fitted with steering wheels and brakes. Okay, now if there are no engine, no steering wheel and brakes inside the car is of no use. But now if I fit the entire assembly of steering wheel, engine and the brakes inside the car will function smoothly. So I hope you would have understood what is app compact activity with this simple real life examples. Similarly, extending your main activity with the app compact activity have further advantages. Like app compact activity also allows backward compatibility on other older Android devices, meaning app compact activity allows app to run on lower version devices as well. So that's it guys. In short, app compact activity is basically a superclass which consists of some of the main methods, and when you extend main activity class with app compact activity, you can inherit the methods from the app compact activity to the main activity. So I hope this video would have cleared up your concepts and doubts related to app compact activity. Now, in the next video, I'll be explaining you what do you mean by the override notation. In the meantime, if you like this video, please click on the like button at the bottom, and if you want to learn Android.
Alright, so what he has just explained you is about inheritance concept that we're going to learn, and you start to see them now. So let me show you the chapter that we're going to see it. And I want you to start reading it, okay? So now you see that we start to review like this past 2 weeks, right? So I don't want you to stuck with those chapters, okay? So that's why I just get this one out, get the assignment done. And we pretty much just complete our review here too, right? On chapter 1, 2, 3, and 5, 6, right? So let me show you the inheritance, then you start to learn more. So we get to 1, 2, 3, right? 4, 5, 6, 5, 6 here. 4 is just very simple function, strings have the methods, and characters have the methods. Now you're gonna learn an array. You pretty much know it already, right? We're gonna review that. The concept of inheritance start to come in chapter 11. Once you understand object and classes, that I mentioned a little bit also when I create a student object, right? Last time. So you have to think about objects. That's why he started to show you car, engines. So when we write a Java code, we actually think in terms of objects. So that's why I call object-oriented programming. Like, we build stuff from another stuff. Object built from another object. Like car built from engines, seats, bodies, tires. Those are also objects, right? Engine built from pistols, screws. Those are objects too, right? So that's why when you start to see like Android, I say it's slow. Test pass, okay. You see that we have the parent object, and you make main activity from your parent object. Okay, so just like when you use JavaFX, application represent the Windows application, right? When you run, you get the Windows right away. Then you can start to add items to that. You don't have to build from scratch. All right, so now this is just the method on that, like when you create, right? So if you look at Android comparing to JavaFX, JavaFX, when you start, you load, right? The UI, right? User interface from FXML. This one, you first when you create, it's just try to, like when you launch the app, it's just try to save the state of wherever you are. You left something open because you may launch many apps, right? It save that state, right? And then it set a content view. That means it's just show the view launching up. And this is a view. Pretty much just link to your layout on under layout, and or this is like resources under layout. You see that path, right? Like the package, right? Or just represent that resource folder, right? And you have the activity main.xml, which is just the UI that you drag and drop. It's just like fxml. That makes sense? So, meaning that if I want to do the same thing, let's see if I have button. Let's get a button first. Right here. Right, so, and the button's pretty much what? Get my zodiac, right? So that's the ID. And this is text to display. So, I want to leave it on, okay? Let me close this. I start to be very slow when I run that. So I would recommend you to use a fast machine, or just try to clean up your machine. Oops. Sorry, it's having to close both. You may see it's powered by IntelliJ platform. That's why I start to ask you to use IntelliJ. That's the reason. Then you get used to the environment. So we're going to create a button, and we're going to test the button first when we click, right? So let's see, when we click the button has the ID, right? So the question is how you're going to make the button. We're going to do the same thing, system.out.print, right? How are we going to make the button to print? So they should have like the on-click event. Like last time when we're looking at JavaFX, right? We said JavaFX has a controller. So when we click, we're just going to call on action. So let's go to the button again, on action. Right, so an action called the method get zodiacs, right? Now, for Android, in your main activity here, after we say on create, right, set layout, we have to remember we said the method that we need to use is on create and file view by ID. Right, file view by ID is pretty much just linking. Same thing that we give the fxid with the fxid for the picker, right? So this is just like you have to give the button ID and then you can use file view by ID instead of in JavaFX we use fxml, and fxml link it for you, right? But in Android we can use file view by ID, and then you link to the button, and then you give the button name as the ID, and then it's going to return the object into your code. And then the button itself going to create a method, just like the method that we do call like get zodiac, right? So this is pretty much just going to be the implementation inside, right? The object button need to set on action. Remember, button in JavaFX we call on action, right? But this one we call on click listener. It's just different name. Okay, and on the fxml we just set it on the scene builder on action, but this one we set on the code. We just write a code to set it. So pretty much just this is pretty much just the template that linking to the button, like this 3 line of codes here, right? All right, so we get to a button, and then we give the button ID, right? I'm gonna leave by default and button for now, or let's just name Zodiac BTN Zodiac button, and then text, change it to get my Zodiac, right? All right. Now we're going to switch back to code. We're just going to test how to link it, right? So we just talked about that, right? We have to create button, right? And this is just import button. When I do Alt enter, it's going to import, right? I'm going to say the btn so that's equals to find view by ID, right? And if you remember, we have to link to r dot, right, layout. r.id at this point. Okay. If you open back the resources, so we can have the list of ID, and this is the ID that we just named button zodiac, right? Now this should be the buttons for Android widget button. r.id, or we can do final. So it looks like this one get to the button zodiac, right? Let me see. Yeah, this is a type widget button. Okay, let's see if we can set the on click listener, right? So now you're gonna start to learn. Okay, after you learn inheritance, you're gonna learn an interface. Okay. This is pretty much just you try to create a new object. Okay. And this new object, you get it from the view that listen to the click event. Okay. And there's a method which is you require to implement, which is on click. And then when you learn about interface and abstract method, you will understand what is this part. Okay. It's going to explain a little bit more. We're going to review in that again. But this part, what I like you to do is you just pretty much at this point, you just know that whenever you want to make it listen, you just need to call that on click listener, and then it's going to implement on click. Okay. Now let's review what is view again. Okay. In this case, view should be a class, right? So it's coming from Android view.view, right? So if you go to like view Android, then you should be able to reference to the class, right? Just like your Java doc, technically, right? And then it's going to show you the method summaries, right? It's pretty much just show you all the description about this class. This is all the interface. So when we're looking at this, we just look at view.on. Then this is the interfaces that on click listener. That's why I said when we talk about the chapter that talk about interface, you're gonna understand this more. So I would recommend you to start reading chapter 11, inheritance and polymorphism. And then chapter 13, abstract classes and interfaces. Okay. After you read that, you're pretty much going to have more idea why it's structured that way. Okay. We're gonna cover those, so start to read that. Okay, so I just show you that these are the interface view, right, on click listener. So when you click on that interface, it's going to have one abstract method. So an abstract method is a method that you never implemented. Okay, like we create a method, we normally implement it, right? But this is never implemented just like that. That's why it's let the user override. Override means try to implement it, right, to the parents. Now when you override, you pretty much just going to say whenever I click, it should show pretty much what your zodiacs, right? So actually I could just copy the code from here, right, where I start to get my zodiacs. So I put it here. On click, it's going to do all of this. Okay, so let me just create date. Date equals to new date. So technically when I do that, it's going to go to the system date and get the current year, right, 2017. And it's going to do the rest the same. Okay, so I'm going to say string zodiacs. This is the same code that we have seen, right? I just didn't get the date picker. I just created date from the system date. Now, so after I finish clicking this, so switch case is done, I'm going to print these zodiacs, and this one should be this year's zodiacs, right? Which is let me do this. I'm going to put this out. Okay, and I'm going to declare this zodiacs. Right around here. Okay. All right, so now let's test. So it's going to load this code into the emulator with just the button that we put, and then when we hit the button, it's going to print out on the console. I want to run main activities. That one was running on the test one, so I rerun that. Is it about time already? Okay. So I want you to go back and try to get your Android set up. I said it's going to take a while to create your emulator, link your SDK, Android SDK. So that's going to be a little bit challenge at that point. So just try that first. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to let this run, and I'm going to call the row, and then you can go back home and test that, and we can just come back and look at this again. Yeah. Now, any other question for me? All right. So make sure you get your assignment done by this Sunday, right? And you pretty much know how to make all extra credits, right? 2 of them for now, FX and Android Studio.
How many assignments do on Sunday?
1, 2, 3, 5, 6. Chapter 1, Chapter 2.
3 assignments? Yeah.
If you haven't done 1, 2, 3, you have to do it. Like last Sunday, you're supposed to get it done, right? So this Sunday is just 5 and 6. If you have been done 1, 2, 3, you just have to do them. Camilla?
Here.
Michael? Michael? Audrey? Tusha? Victor? what? Let me stop the streaming first.